Here we go. The leap second will be accounted for in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!
Welcome back to the channel. In our last video, we wrapped up the 1980s. Now, we step into 1990, the beginning of a brand new decade that would shape the future of gaming and pop culture. As the world entered the 1990s, history was being made. In South Africa, activist Nelson Mandela was released from prison. The Gulf War began, marking a major global conflict. 1990 was a massive year for movies, including Home Alone, Goodfellas, Pretty Woman, The Hunt for Red October, Back to the Future Part 3, Die Hard 2, Dances with Wolves, Ghost, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Several iconic TV shows premiered in 1990, Beverly Hills, 90210, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Twin Peaks, Law and Order, In Living Color, and Tiny Toon Adventures. The music charts in 1990 were unforgettable songs like You Can't Touch This, MC Hammer, Vogue, Madonna, Nothing Compares to You, Sinead O'Connor, Ice Ice Baby, Vanilla Ice, Epic, Faith No More, Poison, Belle Biv DeVoe. Meanwhile, Mariah Carey released her self-titled debut album Mariah Carey. Ice Cube dropped his solo debut America's Most Wanted. In the world of sports, at Super Bowl 24, the San Francisco 49ers defeated the Denver Broncos, becoming the second NFL franchise to win 4 Super Bowls since the Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty of the 1970s. In boxing, Mike Tyson suffered his first professional loss to James Buster Douglas in one of the biggest upsets in sports history. In wrestling, The Ultimate Warrior defeated Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 6 in The Ultimate Challenge. While all of this was happening, gaming was evolving fast. Nintendo continued its dominance with the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America, but major change was coming in Japan with the upcoming Super Famicom. Meanwhile, Sega was pushing hard with the Genesis, intensifying what would soon become one of the greatest console wars in history. And of course, one of the most anticipated Mario games ever released in 1990. So what made 1990 such a pivotal year in gaming? Let's dive in. 1. Super Mario Bros. 3 finally arrives in North America. After nearly 2 years of anticipation following its Japanese debut, Super Mario Bros. 3 finally launched in North America in 1990. And the hype was absolutely real. NES owners had been waiting impatiently, especially after seeing previews and its appearance in The Wizard. When it arrived, it did not disappoint. Players once again controlled Mario or Luigi, setting out to rescue Princess Toadstool and the rulers of 7 different kingdoms from the evil Bowser. But this wasn't just another Mario sequel, a massive upgrade for the NES. Super Mario Bros. 3 felt like a generational leap on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It featured completely revamped, colorful graphics, a new overworld map system, inventory-based power-ups, more complex level design, iconic power-ups. One of the biggest highlights was the Super Leaf, which transformed Mario or Luigi into Raccoon Mario, allowing players to fly for short periods, a mechanic that completely changed platforming strategy. Another fan favorite was the Tanuki suit, giving players flight abilities plus the power to turn into a statue to avoid enemies. New villains. The game also introduced the Koopalings, Bowser's mischievous children, each ruling over a different kingdom. This added personality and variety to boss battles unlike anything seen in previous Mario titles. Super Mario Bros. 3 became the best-selling game of 1990 in North America and is widely regarded as one of the greatest NES games ever made. For many fans, it was the defining Nintendo experience of the early 90s. After years of waiting, the most hyped Mario game had finally arrived, and it lived up to every expectation. 2. Super Famicom. Nintendo enters the 16-bit era. With Sega already pushing into the 16-bit generation with the Sega Genesis, known in Japan as the Sega Mega Drive, Nintendo knew the 8-bit era of the family computer was nearing its limits. So in November 1990, Nintendo officially launched the Super Famicom in Japan. A huge launch in Japan. While North America was preparing for the Thanksgiving holiday season, gamers across Japan were lining up in massive numbers to get their hands on Nintendo's new 16-bit powerhouse. The demand was enormous, and the console sold out quickly, proving Nintendo was ready to compete in the next generation. A counterattack to Sega, the Super Famicom was Nintendo's direct response to Sega's growing momentum with the Mega Drive. It featured enhanced 16-bit graphics, Richer sound capabilities, larger, more detailed game worlds, advanced visual effects that weren't possible on 8-bit hardware. Nintendo wasn't just upgrading, they were preparing for battle. The beginning of the console war. Although Japan received the Super Famicom in 1990, North American gamers would have to wait 9 more months. In 1991, it would arrive in the US as the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, SNES. That launch marked the true beginning of one of the most legendary rivalries in gaming history. Nintendo versus Sega, the 16-bit console war that defined the early 1990s. 3. Nintendo Entertainment System still dominates in 1990. Even as the 16-bit era was beginning overseas, the Nintendo Entertainment System wasn't done yet. With the Sega Genesis gaining momentum in North America and the Super Famicom launching in Japan, many expected the NES to start fading quickly. After all, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System was just a year away in the US, but in 1990, the NES proved it still had life left. A price drop that changed everything. Now available at a new low price of $80, the NES became even more accessible to families. For the third straight year, it remained the top-selling console in the United States, continuing Nintendo's dominance of the home gaming market. The beginning of the end, but not yet. Nintendo understood that 8-bit technology wouldn't last forever. The future was clearly 16-bit. However, the NES still had a massive install base, a huge library of hit games, strong third-party support, brand loyalty built throughout the 1980s. Even though it was slowly beginning to phase out, demand for the NES remained high in 1990. For many households, it was still the go-to gaming system. 1990 wasn't just about the future of gaming, it was also the last big year of dominance for the 8-bit king. 4. Super Mario 4, Super Mario World, launches in Japan. While gamers in the United States were finally enjoying Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES, players in Japan were already stepping into the 16-bit future with Super Mario Bros. 4, Super Mario World, on the Super Famicom. Released in November 1990 as a launch title for the Super Famicom, Super Mario Bros. 4 showcased what 16-bit graphics could truly do. For the first time ever, Mario appeared in vibrant 16-bit visuals with smoother animation, richer colors, and larger, more detailed levels. In the game, Mario, Luigi, and Princess Peach traveled to Dinosaurland, often called Dinoland, where they must once again stop Bowser and rescue Peach. The biggest addition to the series was the introduction of Yoshi, the lovable green dinosaur that Mario can ride. Interestingly, legendary Nintendo designer Shigeru Miyamoto had originally wanted to include Yoshi in the first Super Mario Bros. On the NES. However, due to hardware limitations of the Nintendo Entertainment System, it simply wasn't possible at the time. With the power of the Super Famicom's 16-bit technology, Miyamoto was finally able to bring Yoshi to life. Super Mario Bros. 4 quickly became the top-selling Super Famicom game in Japan in 1990, helping drive early adoption of Nintendo's new console. While North America was still finishing the 8-bit era, Japan had already stepped fully into the next generation. 5. Tom Kalinske joins Sega of America. When Sega launched the Sega Genesis in North America, the system showed promise, but it was still trailing far behind Nintendo and the Nintendo Entertainment System. Sega knew that if they wanted to seriously compete, they needed bold leadership. Enter Tom Kalinske. In 1990, Sega hired Tom Kalinske as the new CEO of Sega of America. Before joining Sega, Kalinske had worked at Mattel, where he helped revitalize major brands such as Barbie, Hot Wheels, Masters of the Universe. He had a reputation for bold marketing strategies and understanding what appealed to kids and teens. Genesis does what Nintendo didn't. Kalinske's mission was simple: beat Nintendo. His strategy focused heavily on aggressive marketing and positioning the Genesis as the cooler, more powerful alternative. This led to the now legendary ad campaign, Genesis does what Nintendo didn't. The commercials directly challenged Nintendo, something few companies had dared to do at the time. The ads were edgy, fast-paced, and aimed at an older audience compared to Nintendo's family-friendly image. Preparing for war, Kalinske's leadership didn't immediately flip the market in 1990, but it laid the groundwork for what was coming next. With the Super Nintendo Entertainment System arriving the following year, the stage was set for one of the greatest rivalries in gaming history: Nintendo versus Sega, the 16-bit console wars. And 1990 was the calm before the storm. 6. Final Fantasy finally arrives in North America. 3 years after its original release in Japan, Final Fantasy finally made its way to North America in 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. When it debuted in Japan in 1987, Final Fantasy became a major success and helped define the Japanese role-playing game, JRPG, genre. But until 1990, North American gamers had never experienced the series. The birth of a JRPG phenomenon in the US for many players in North America, this was their first introduction to deep, turn-based combat, character classes and party customization, an epic fantasy storyline, a large, explorable overworld. Developed by Square, now known as Square Enix, Final Fantasy brought a more story-driven and strategic experience compared to most action-heavy NES titles at the time. Final Fantasy went on to become one of the best-selling NES games of 1990 in North America. More importantly, it laid the foundation for what would become one of the most successful and beloved RPG franchises in gaming history. What started as a risky project in Japan had now officially taken its first step toward global popularity. And this was only the beginning. 7. Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, the birth of a new Nintendo franchise. While Nintendo was already dominating with Mario, Zelda, and Metroid, 1990 marked the debut of another franchise that would become a major pillar for the company, Fire Emblem. Released in Japan for the family computer, Famicom, Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light introduced players to a new kind of strategy-focused role-playing game. The story of Marth, set on the fictional continent of Arcania, the game follows Marth, the Prince of Altea. After his kingdom is conquered, Marth is forced into exile and must build an army to reclaim his homeland. His enemies include the dark sorcerer Garneth and the powerful dragon Medius, known as the Shadow Dragon. The game introduced mechanics that would define the series: grid-based tactical combat, permanent character death, permadeath, deep character progression, story-driven strategy gameplay. Despite its importance, the original Fire Emblem was never released outside Japan in 1990. Western audiences wouldn't officially experience the first game until 2020, when it was localized and released digitally on the Nintendo Switch. Although it started quietly in Japan, this was the first entry in what would become one of Nintendo's longest-running tactical RPG franchises. From a small Famicom release in 1990 to a global strategy phenomenon, Fire Emblem's journey began right here. 8. Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake, the sequel that Japan got first. In 1990, Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake was released in Japan as the highly anticipated sequel to Metal Gear. Set in 1999, a few years after the events of the original game, players once again take control of Solid Snake. Snake must infiltrate the heavily fortified Zanzibar land in Central Asia to rescue a kidnapped scientist, destroy the new and improved Metal Gear weapon. North America missed out at first. Unfortunately, North American gamers didn't receive Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake in 1990. Instead, US players got Snake's Revenge, an alternative sequel developed without the involvement of legendary designer Hideo Kojima. While Snake's Revenge offered similar stealth action gameplay, it was considered inferior to Kojima's original vision. Fans in the US had to wait 15 years until 2005 for the official Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake to finally be released outside Japan. A long wait for fans. Although US gamers were temporarily left out, Metal Gear 2 solidified the stealth action formula that would define the series. It would take until 1998, with Metal Gear Solid, for the franchise to return and truly explode in popularity worldwide. 9. Dr. Mario, Nintendo's first Mario spin-off. While the Super Mario Bros. Series dominated the platforming scene, Nintendo decided to experiment with Mario spin-offs, and the first one came in the form of Dr. Mario. Released in 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, Dr. Mario was a falling block puzzle game that challenged players to think strategically in a new way. Gameplay. In the game, the player's objective is to eliminate viruses scattered across the screen by matching them with colored capsules that Dr. Mario tosses into the playing field. The core mechanics are similar to Tetris, requiring players to match colors and plan ahead to clear the board. Popularity and legacy. Dr. Mario became one of the most popular NES titles of 1990 and is considered the first Mario spin-off, paving the way for countless other Mario-themed games outside the main series. It combined puzzle gameplay with Mario's iconic charm, showing that Nintendo could successfully branch out beyond platformers while keeping the brand recognizable and fun. 10. Castlevania 3. Dracula's Curse, the prequel that conquered the NES. Following its release in Japan, the third installment of the Castlevania series, Castlevania 3. Dracula's Curse, arrived in North America in 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. A prequel to the classic series. Set several centuries before the original Castlevania, the game introduces players to Trevor Belmont, an ancestor of Simon Belmont. Called into action to vanquish the dark forces of Dracula, Trevor navigates intricate castles, battles iconic monsters, and faces new challenges that expand the lore of the series. Features and impact: multiple branching paths for varied gameplay experiences. Introduction of ally characters that can assist Trevor in combat. Expanded level design and challenging platforming. Castlevania 3. Dracula's Curse reinforced the series' reputation for tight gameplay, dark atmosphere, and challenging NES platforming, cementing its place as one of the standout NES titles of 1990. 11. Mega Man 3 Mega Man Returns. In 1990, the third installment of the Mega Man series was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System, continuing the adventures of the Blue Bomber. Taking place after the events of Mega Man 2, players once again control Mega Man as he teams up with his creator, Dr. Light, and surprisingly, a supposedly reformed Dr. Wily, to collect parts for a peacekeeping robot. Along the way, Mega Man battles several robot masters that have gone haywire. A notable addition to the series was Rush, Mega Man's robotic dog companion, who could transform into helpful forms to aid in platforming and combat. Mega Man 3 received critical acclaim for its level design, music, and innovative gameplay. It went on to become the third top-selling NES game of 1990, behind Super Mario Bros. 3 and Dr. Mario, solidifying Mega Man as one of Capcom's premier action franchises. 12. Batman. The video game, The Dark Knight hits the NES. Following the success of the Batman film, Nintendo released Batman, the video game in 1990, the first Batman title for the NES that directly tied into the film. A fast-paced 2D action platformer inspired by Ninja Gaiden, the game had Batman taking on a variety of foes, not just the Joker. Players faced enemies such as Deadshot, KG Beast, Maxi Zeus, Heatwave, Shakedown, Nightslayer. Players had to navigate complex levels, using Batman's gadgets and combat skills to defeat these enemies and bring order to Gotham City. Batman. The video game became the second best-selling NES game of 1990, right behind Super Mario Bros. 3. Widely praised for its challenging gameplay and faithful adaptation of the 1989 film, it is still remembered as one of the best NES Batman games of all time. Truly, 1990 was the year The Dark Knight made his mark on video games as well as the big screen. 13. Smash TV. The arcade game that blew up. While the NES and new consoles were dominating homes in 1990, the arcade scene was still thriving, and one of the biggest hits of the year was Smash TV. Gameplay and concept, set in a dystopian television game show in the then-future year of 1999, Smash TV allowed one or two players to fight through waves of enemies, collecting cash prizes, temporary power-ups, other valuable rewards. After clearing an arena of attackers, players would choose an exit, each leading to a new room, some containing challenging end-of-level bosses. Influence and legacy. Although it followed the classic twin-stick shooter formula, Smash TV stood out for its intensity, chaotic gameplay, and futuristic theme. It also paved the way for later shooter games, including iconic titles like Doom, influencing both design and fast-paced action mechanics in gaming for years to come. 14. The Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3 Mario hits Saturday morning TV. Following the massive success of Super Mario Bros. 3, Nintendo teamed up with Dick Entertainment to bring Mario to Saturday morning television with The Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3, which aired on NBC in 1990. The animated series followed the events of the NES game, featuring Mario, Luigi, Princess Toadstool, and as they battled against Bowser and his Koopalings. The show captured the charm and humor of the game. It became a hit with kids, airing alongside popular shows like Captain N and the Game Master. Nintendo even promoted it through McDonald's Happy Meal toys, making the franchise impossible to miss. Although there was no Season 2 of the original Super Mario Bros. Super Show, this new series successfully carried the Mario brand forward, keeping fans engaged both on-screen and in the gaming world. The Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3 became a cultural touchstone of 1990, blending video games and Saturday morning cartoons like never before. 15. Video Power, Gaming Hits TV. As video games became a mainstream phenomenon in 1990, television began embracing the trend with shows dedicated to gaming. One of the most popular was Video Power, which premiered that year. What made Video Power unique? Video Power combined multiple elements for gamers: game previews and tips, segments showcasing upcoming and popular titles. A 15-minute cartoon feature, The Video Team, which brought characters from Acclaim and Midway Games to life, including Max Force, a police officer from Narc; Kuros, a knight from Wizards and Warriors; Tyrone, a basketball player from Arch Rivals; Quirk, a tomato from the puzzle game Quirk; Bigfoot, the monster truck from Bigfoot. This innovative blend of live action and animated content brought video game worlds directly to television, a precursor to modern gaming media and streaming content, long before the internet made this common. Although it aired at 8:30 a.m., which made catching it tricky for school kids, it quickly became a fan favorite on off days. Video Power reflected the growing influence of gaming in pop culture and set the stage for future video game shows. Closing 1990, setting the stage for the console wars. 1990 was a pivotal year and a true precursor to what would come in the early 90s. Nintendo continued to dominate the US market with the NES, bolstered by blockbuster releases like Super Mario Bros. 3 and Dr. Mario. Third-party hits such as Batman, the video game, Mega Man 3, and Castlevania 3. Dracula's Curse demonstrated the system's continued strength and the health of its library. Meanwhile, Sega took bold steps to challenge Nintendo's dominance by hiring Tom Kalinske as CEO of Sega of America, setting the stage for aggressive marketing campaigns and the rising popularity of the Sega Genesis. Over in Japan, Nintendo launched the Super Famicom, the 16-bit powerhouse that would soon arrive in North America as the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, marking the beginning of a new era. With console wars on the horizon, 1990 was both a culmination of the NES era and a teaser for the battles to come. In the next video, we'll dive into 1991, the year the 16-bit console wars officially began, Sega versus Nintendo, in what would become one of gaming's greatest rivalries. If you like the video, make sure you hit the like button and I will see you soon.